Finally, the game we've waited on all year, Penn State and Ohio State. Big noon kickoff this week.
Boy, in the preseason, this one looked like a honey. Joel Klatt will be there. Klatt, I mean, in the preseason, this was one we circled like, boy, you're going to want to watch this one. Big Ten implications, national championship implications.
Number one, number two.
Could it be 1-2? Gosh,
Yeah.
how Penn State screwed that up for you guys.
Man, how fast everything changes in this sport. You know, it was I think it was 15 days from the time Penn State jogs on the field in the double overtime with a chance to win the game. Their offense is jogging on the field, a chance to win the game against Oregon in the whiteout. 15 days later, James Franklin is fired. You know, think about LSU beating Clemson. I know that's a longer period, but all the way back to week 1, and LSU is like, oh, man, this is a top 5 team. This is it. Brian Kelly's national championship caliber team. They lose 3 of their last 4. He's fired. You know, I mean, it just happens so – life comes at you fast, man.
It does.
In college football, it is going faster than ever. And so, yeah, this is obviously a game that we thought was going to have a lot more implications. But I will say, and the games that some of these teams have lost, specifically Penn State, like against UCLA, I've said this, I continue to say this, I think that the average and even like poor teams in college football have more talent than they used to in the past, which makes every game a bit more precarious for the top end teams, which we've seen at times, and some of these games that are really close that we don't expect to be close. So this one will be a good one. I'm fully expecting Penn State to play their best football.
So Penn State unranked at 3-4. Vanderbilt 7-1, number 9. Now watching that game this past weekend, if Bo doesn't go down on the goal line, I thought Missouri was the better team. But still, it was a very, very good win, top 15 win for Vanderbilt. With that said, Joel, I got to bring up this scenario to you because I know you're always the guy that is viewed as anti-SEC for whatever reason. I have brought this scenario up twice on this show. Imagine this. Vanderbilt is 10-2. Notre Dame is 10-2, and they are battling for the last playoff spot. Who gets it? Vanderbilt with the 4 top 25 wins or Notre Dame with no top 25 wins?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the truest test to whether this thing is an invitational and brand equity and what does that mean? That's a really difficult question. And by the way, that would also mean that Vandy is losing at some point between now and then. You know, so the timing of the loss, which we've always talked about timing. Let's forget about, brand perception and everything. Timing of losses are always going to hurt you worse than just losses in general. And in this case that you're painting, Notre Dame would be coming off of 10 straight wins. The fashion that Notre Dame is winning, I think, is pretty impressive. That's a great question. I tend to believe that they would lean towards Notre Dame. But I don't really know. I will say this, like I've played out, so I'm going to record today, a little bit later today, my last projection for a bracket before we start getting to actual rankings. And so I started going through and I would just play everybody's schedule out. See, I've got like all these records in here and all this stuff. And I just started playing it out. And I think that Vandy is going to stub their toe twice.
Oh, boy.
Like, I think that they're going to go 9-3. But I could be wrong. There's something like Tennessee at Tennessee. I don't love that game for Vandy. It was just the way that the Missouri game played out. Because to your point, I thought Missouri was really the better team, and Vandy escapes having to face a backup quarterback, and they win by a foot. So I don't know. We'll see. I think Vandy might.
So, but this weekend, real quick, before Dunaway gets to his point, you're going to Texas. Talking about brands, it's night and day. Texas has now won back-to-back road games in overtime against teams that are combined 6-9, and they haven't won a conference game. So the better team is Vanderbilt. If you can wrap your head around that, they're getting 1.5 in this spot. But is this one of the two stubbing of the toes you think is this weekend in Austin?
That's what I had. When I play it out, I have Vandy losing to Texas and Tennessee. And partly because I do think Texas's defense is going to be uniquely suited to handle Pavia just because of their athleticism. That's still one of the top 5 defenses in all of college football, I believe. Now, obviously, on the offensive side, who knows what you're getting from Texas on any given day? The fourth quarter was the best that offense looked all year. I think you guys would agree with me, and the best Arch probably looked all year. And then he goes down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what are we gonna do? And then Sark gives that comment after the game, and the whole time I was like, I was waiting for him to be like, it's unequivocally false and not true. And he never said that. All he said is it was ridiculous. You know, were you guys like with me?
Yeah.
Oh,
we
no,
did talk about
I pointed it out on the air. We played it twice. I was like, you notice he didn't. We call it gaslighting. He didn't answer the question.
Yeah.
he lectured us on how to do our jobs, but he never said.
There was a lecture, and it was ridiculous, and I was like,
yeah.
Wait a second. Was there not a?
And I made the point because Arch is not going to the NFL, and you got to clean up that mess if you stay there. That's a tough cleanup to move on from Arch Manning. I want to
you're
ask.
not benching Arch Manning.
You wouldn't think.
Absolutely. I feel cheated, and it's probably on my fault, but I feel cheated that this Ohio State team, I believe, is really, really good. Maybe 3 of the best players in college football, and I don't get to see them in peak games in a great schedule on a week in and week out basis. Am I wrong about that? Am I just not paying enough attention? But I feel cheated. I'm not getting to see this team challenged more.
I think that's fair. I think that has a couple of things. I think that I do think that the middle of the conference is underrated in the Big Ten. Now, everyone that's listening is going to be like, of course you do. But I think that that's the case. Like beating Washington the way that they beat them, I think is a quality win. And in particular, holding that offense to what they did. Not many have done that. So that's number one. But then I think it also speaks to kind of the complete nature. They're almost just like boringly good.
Yep.
Because there's not a ton of weaknesses on that team. Like let me give you an example. And if you did just like a side-by-side comparison with Alabama and Ohio State, and you started looking at these teams, and listen, take my, I call Big Ten games, just these 2 teams and how they're built, the way they play, defense, not even close. It's really not even comparable. Right? I think we would all agree with that. Ohio State's defense is clearly the best defense in college football. They've got 2 of the best players in the sport, and then another 2 that are probably All-Americans. So they got 3-4 All-American caliber players on that defense. They've given up 41 total points in 7 games. Bama's defense is not that. I think we can all agree on that. Then you go to the run games, and you can say like, well, they're comparable, but the edge is probably to Ohio State. I mean, Bama's 15th in the SEC in rushing in conference games. Teams. I'm looking at some of these numbers, and I'm like, hold on a second. LSU and Oklahoma run it better per carry in conference games. I'm like, what? That's so. Even though Ohio State's not great running the football, they're better by an average of a yard per carry than Alabama. And then you go to like, well, Bama's got the passing game edge. And you're like, well, do they? Both of these teams have an elite passing game. And so the margin between what is right now, what is Alabama, 3 in the country?
Number 4 in the AP
country.
poll.
4 in the AP.
4.
Yeah.
4 behind A&M. The margin between the number 1 team in the country and the 4 team in the country is actually kind of wide right now, because there are some clear issues with Bama. If Ty Simpson in the passing game don't play elite football, they are susceptible to be beat, which we saw this last weekend. That was one of his 2 worst performances of the season from a completion percentage standpoint. Now, he didn't turn it over from an interception perspective, but they still struggled. If you look at the numbers against Florida State and South Carolina, they're like identical, almost identical. And guess what? All of a sudden you're in this tight game. I don't know why Shane Beamer didn't go for 2. I thought that was an incredible mistake at the end of the game, up 7 and not going for 2. But you compare Ohio State and Alabama, and it's not terribly comparative. And if you want to say that's just the fault of the schedule, that's fine. But I don't think that that's what the film suggests.
For the record, I do think they're the best team. I was just saying I feel cheated that I'm not getting to watch them play really good games every week.
You're saying what
I
people
think
are
that's
countering Klatt with is, well, okay, well, who have they beat?
Yeah, but
who have they beaten?
But we did this with Alabama sometimes.
Listen, that's fair. I'm not trying to say that that's wrong. I'm really not trying to like pound the table or anything like that. I think it's I do think that even in a year in which the middle of the Big Ten hasn't elevated, Ohio State has. So their margin above other teams is just greater. And I think my point was like, oh, well, we feel like, well, Bama's been tested and everything. Yeah, but they're closer to the middle of their conference, obviously, because they're flawed in many respects. And we don't have those obvious flaws with the Buckeyes.
By the way, Beamer,
I'm trying to be as fair as I am. I'm always the Big Ten guy.
Yeah, I'm just glad Indiana doesn't have Ohio State schedule. I'm glad Indiana, because I had a guy this weekend was like, they got to play somebody. I'm like, they just beat Oregon and Alton. Like, Indiana is legitimate.
Illinois was a top 10 team when they beat them by 53 points.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at some point, don't you have to just be like, okay, like it's a good football team. Yeah, they might not have played Oklahoma's schedule, but it's a really good football team.
By the way, Beamer did go for two, down 14-12 with 30 minutes of football left. I'm like, what are you doing? Kick the point, make it a 1 point. There's 30 minutes of football left.
Well,
you really think you got to go for two
and
there?
Then late, you go.
Then you don't.
Go up 7.
I know.
Like what?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. There's very little risk in going for two there, because if Bama scores, they probably are just going to kick the extra point. So, like, worst case scenario, you probably still go to overtime. Now, that has to disregard the turnover, which is a great job stripping the football by Bama. There's no doubt.
Joel Klatt is with us. College football on Fox. You'll see the big noon kick, Ohio State, Penn State on Saturday, 11 o'clock Central, noon Eastern there on Fox with Klatt and Gus and the All-American girl. They'll all be there.
Who's getting the
Franklin
LSU job, boys?
Well, that's a good question. I mean,
I'm posing it to you. I'm just going to bring it up.
I've said this many times. This is going to me, the end result's going to be Lane Kiffin's your highest paid coach in America. I just don't know where.
Yeah, I think that's the leverage. I actually would disagree. I think Dan Lanning will be the highest paid coach in America.
Where?
I would say 60-40 Oregon.
Okay. The 40 would be 20 LSU, 20 Florida for you, or all LSU?
All LSU.
Okay.
Dan's not leaving Oregon to go to Florida.
God, what a kick. I mean, Oregon doesn't fire their coaches outside of Helfrich. I mean, they just leave for other
jobs. They all leave. Why do they all leave, Klatt? Why have all Oregon's coaches left?
Well, part of it is that they continue to hire guys that have, like, roots and ties elsewhere.
Yeah.
You know, that was the case, obviously, with Mario and others. And it kind of the case with Dan, because he cut his teeth in the SEC. Now, here's the other part of this. Dan really loves the support he gets because it's substantial. That's number one. His family loves it in Eugene. Kids, wife, love it in Eugene. And part of the reason that they love it is they can go to dinner, guys. And that's not the case at other places, right? And I'm talking about like have a bit of a life. It's just kind of is the now you could say, well, that just means that they're not as passionate there. No, it's just different. It's just a totally different style of deal. And then he just has to continue to wonder to himself, is it too difficult to bridge the travel gap to get elite players? That's the only downside to Oregon, is just the distance that you've got to bring players in to try to get them. But everything is there from a resource perspective. My contention would be that LSU is a top 3 job. This is as I think that Ohio State and Texas are the 2 best jobs in college football. I think LSU is the 3rd best job in college football. I think Georgia is 4. And then you're starting to argue about like, well, you know, where does Bama fit in? Where does Tennessee fit in these types of scenarios? Where does A&M fit in? But this is a big boy. So you can say he turned down Alabama, but LSU is a different breed. I think LSU has more financial support than Alabama. They've got the equal recruiting footing. They've got great tradition, although not Bama's, obviously, but great tradition. So this is going to be, I think that Dan Lanning is going to have to turn down $15 million a year in order to not go to LSU.
15 a year.
Because you brought up Oregon and Washington, I want to circle back. I was doing a show on Saturday, and I said, Damon Williams, I was asked about Illinois and Washington. I said, there's going to be weeks that he plays like one of the best quarterbacks in all of football, but you're going to see some inconsistencies this year. I said, next year, it will be almost every week this guy will play like one of the best quarterbacks. He did it again this past week. They got their first win of substance against Illinois going away. With that said, before the season, you talked about them being a dark horse. You start to look at that. The next 3 games, they're going to be favored 7+. They're going to be 9-2 more than likely, hosting Oregon, a team that Washington in Husky Stadium has had a lot of success against. That could actually be a play-in game if Oregon stubs their toe against USC. But do you think Washington is a team that has playoff potential?
At full strength, yes. Now, you could say, like, no, I saw that game against Michigan. They had a couple of offensive linemen out, and I know that that's an excuse, but you guys all know that teams are way different. I think that's the one injury outside of a quarterback that can impact you faster than any is offensive line injuries. I was actually texting with Jed earlier this morning, and we were talking about the difference in their team when they're healthy up front versus when they were banged up. I gave dark horse because I do think that they're really good and they're underrated from what the nation kind of expects of Washington. They're really good at home. And here's the thing is that everyone wants to lament these Big Ten schedules. Oregon's schedule is really tough coming down the stretch. Oregon still has to go to Iowa. They've got to host USC and they have to go to Washington. Those are not going to be easy games for Oregon. So there's no guarantee that Oregon isn't a 10-2 team or maybe even 9-3 team at the end of this. So Oregon's going to have to really do some work here towards the end of the year. And if they do stub their toe against Washington, then Washington could be a 10-2. By the way, Michigan's schedule lines up for them to be a 9-2 facing Ohio State. And that would be a win and in, I believe, in that regard, too. And just by the way, just so you guys know and you guys could banter about this, I think the SEC finishes like this. A&M 12-0, 8-0. Bama 11-1, 8-0. UGA 11-1, 7-1. Ole Miss 11-1, 7-1. Vandy 9-3, 5-3, Texas 8-4, 5-3, Tennessee 10-2, 6-2, OU 8-4, 4-4, and I think you guys get 5 in with Tennessee getting the 10 seed.
Wow. So then you would have 3 Big Ten and Notre Dame. Is that the way you would do that?
I did have I had this group. I had the last 2 spots between 5 teams: 11-2 Georgia Tech, 11-2 BYU, 10-2 Oregon, 10-2 Tennessee, 10-2 Notre Dame. And I gave, for 3 spots, excuse me. And I gave those 3 spots to Oregon, Tennessee, and Notre Dame.
So it'd be Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State.
Sorry,
the Big Ten.
Sunshine in there.
That's quite all right. Sunny day. Not here, but in Southern California.
So does that mean
I left out Georgia Tech, BYU out of that at 11-2.
So that means you had Miami winning the ACC and
That's
Texas Tech winning the Big 12?
Yeah, I have Tech beating BYU twice.
Okay.
Hey,
Interesting.
just
I like
'cause
that.
Former professional baseball player, did you stay up and watch the end of Game 3?
I was going to ask
Dude,
you that.
I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it either.
I was.
And you're on the West Coast. Imagine us.
That was midnight for you. I was up till 2
how do you
a.m.
guys say, I actually turned it off probably moments before Freddie hit that home run. So I made it into the 18th. And I was like, I can't.
Wow.
How do you
can't
make
do
it to
this
the
anymore.
18th?
Yeah, you got to go to the
You
finish.
got to shut it down at some point.
No, you go to once you've done 18 innings, you're like, well, I'm going to see
By the way,
this through.
can I give a quick rant?
Sure.
Sorry, here, hold on.
Hey, while you're doing that,
Gotta
can
get some of the sunshine.
you're before you rant, my favorite, I was telling these guys this, my favorite part was when Verducci or whatever the sideline guy is, when they go down to him and he says, Dave Roberts says that if it goes to the 19th, it's going to be a position player. He doesn't know who yet. And then next thing you know, when they come back from commercial, Yamamoto is warming up in the bullpen after pitching a complete game. And I was telling them, I got chills. Like, what a teammate moment to, you're in the dugout and he's talking about which position player he's going to put in and have a guy
And the
that
guy's
probably
like,
stand
"No,
up and
no,
says,
I'm good."
Man, I'll do it. Well, you just pitched
Yeah.
9 innings. I got chills when he was just warming up in the bullpen. That was 2 in the
I love it
morning.
when big leaguers act like little leaguers.
Yeah, no
That's
doubt.
my
So
favorite
good.
thing is when big leaguers act like little leaguers. Quick rant, quick rant, and then I gotta go. Do you remember? What was it? The 90? What was it? 96, 97 NBA Finals. What was it? Bulls Jazz. Jordan's
Okay.
last year was that 98.
No, that was 97. No, it was
97.
98.
Okay. But they played a couple of times,
Yeah,
so
right.
one of those. Do you remember guys on that last possession when Utah was just like, "Oh no, Jordan can't shoot this time"? Of course not. So watching Shohei Ohtani just get intentionally walked on the biggest stage in baseball is a problem for baseball. That is like the word. And so then we've got all these guys like, who's this guy? Will Call or whatever his name is. And they're like, he got bought a pitching machine during COVID and really worked on his game, and he's going to decide the World Series and not Shohei Ohtani. Hey, Steph Curry, you don't get to take a shot. Hey, Tom Brady, no, 2-minute drive? No, you go over there. You don't get to do the 2-minute drive. We eliminate the stars in baseball at the biggest moments.
So you would limit intentional walks? You get like 2 a game or something?
Oh,
Like that?
of course.
That's interesting. I've never even thought about
I've never
that.
thought about that either.
It's not a bad idea.
And that would have been something they would have implemented with Barry Bonds back
No
in the day.
doubt. Yeah.
Barry, this happened all the time. And it's like everyone pays to come see your stars.
That's
your
true.
league is your stars.
Yeah, you
and
make a great
baseball
point.
actively
Yeah.
diminishes the role of their stars in the biggest moment of the games and of the season. It's crazy. I've thought this my entire life. Listen, I would be dragged to this point because I hate intentional walks altogether. You could drag me to like you get 2 a game, or something like that. It's like a challenge or something. It's like, but you can't just every time he comes up, they're like, oh, put him on, put him on. It's like, this is so dumb. What are we doing? Hey, Jordan, no, not this time. Pass it. Pass it. You gotta pass it.
Yeah, I've never thought of this, but Klatt makes an amazing point.
I
You
loved it. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
I was like-
we limit throwovers to first. We limit mound visits now. Let's limit intentional walks. I don't disagree with you at all. I like that.
Joey's
idea.
4 for 4, and
Yeah.
they're just like, it's like that's not the game.
Yeah.
Well, then you're not competing against their best. Oh
Yeah.
man, I hate it.
I
I
like
hate it
this.
when my team used to intentional walk.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
I like this idea. Klatt's onto something here.
Yeah.
All right, Joel Klatt, you'll see him on Ohio State, Penn State on Saturday, the big noon kick on Fox. Thank you very much, Klatt. Have a great week.
See you, boys. Have a great day.
All right, buddy, you too. We'll see you next week. Klatt with us on the Alexander Shinara Trial Attorneys Hotline.